The next thing I want to do is I want to go through some of the different areas of Microsoft Word, and I want to show you some of the features that we haven't covered yet. So we're going to look at the Home ribbon, the Layout ribbon, just some of these different ribbons, and then some of these drop-down menus, and then also some of this stuff up here, and just make sure we understand all of the different little things you could do in Microsoft Word. And the first place I want to start is with templates. Now I was considering putting templates under essential skills because it almost totally falls there, and I could probably really easily be persuaded to put templates into essential skills. But quite frankly, the amount I use templates isn't very much. But when I do use them, I'm always like, oh wow, that was really awesome. I'm so glad I used templates. So for instance, the other day I had to put together an award certificate for people who had completed a course, and I didn't want to have to build that from scratch. So I went up to templates, and you can find it right here, new from templates, and it's like very colorful. Or you could just go file, new from templates, and I don't recommend trying to memorize this shortcut key. You probably won't use this enough, but if you do, then of course go for it. But you choose new from template, and you have some pre-built documents here in Microsoft Word which you could use. And you could browse through these and take a look at all the different ones that are in there, plus all the different categories: calendars, stationery, resume, miscellaneous, newsletters, brochures, flyers. Or, like me, I wanted an award certificate, so I just looked for award. And here are some of the award certificates that are out there. And you could just find the one that you like and then download it and use it. And that's all you have to do. I was going to tell you, when I was doing the Excel training, I tried to find an award certificate, but it only shows you, right, like documents for Microsoft Word if you're in Word, or documents for Microsoft Excel when you're Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and choose just this one, and I could choose that. And so now it will download that template, and it opens it for me. And that looks pretty great. World's best, whatever, and fill it in and put your signature and your date when you print it, and then print it. Now the thing about templates, which is a little bit funny, is like particularly if you are creating a resume template, these can be a little bit difficult to work with. My resume, I had to get pretty granular and get in and adjust it a certain way. And I'll actually give you a copy of my resume so that you could work with it, and I'll show you how to work with it in a later lecture here, so that I think that'd be a really good exercise, just so we could start to apply, again, all of the skills we've been learning, use them in a really applied way. So towards the end of this training, I'll show you how to download my resume, and I'll give you a copy of it, and then show you how to adapt it and modify it. Likewise, you could use any of these if you want, but again, when you do download one of them, and let's just do that so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. If you wanted to make more changes to this, it starts to become difficult. If you like the way it's laid out, then that's great. But if you need to adjust things or extend to another page, it becomes a more difficult thing to do. Anyhow, that's templates, and templates are great to know about because they really easily allow you to create some pretty fantastic looking documents by just downloading it. Right? You download it; it's already been created, and then you just fill in the information. The next thing I want to show you about are panels. And so panels are just another thing, another place within Microsoft Word where you can choose options to do stuff. And before I show you that, however, I want to show you one little trick, which, I was just like, I want to get rid of that return right there and bring my document right up to the top. Well, if I click right here and hit backspace, it gets rid of my one. And then, yeah, I could do that. And then I could reapply the numbered list. And then I could hold down Shift and press Tab and come back. But that was a whole lot of and then I could, right? So I'm going to hit Command Z, 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 Command Z all those times, undo all of that, and show you one other way you could get rid of that. So if I click right there and I press delete, nothing happens. But if I hold down the function key on my keyboard and press delete, it deletes forward. And so on a Mac, they've just decided that delete always means, hey, go backwards and delete what's behind. But if you want to delete what's forward on a Mac, you hold down function and then press delete, and it deletes what's in front, including, well, Command Z, including paragraphs when you want to get rid of them. So there we go. That's a really cool little thing. Holding down function and pressing delete on a Mac deletes forward. So I'm going to turn off my non-printing characters, and now I'm going to show you what this video is really about, which are panels. And so in Microsoft Word, you've got different areas where you could select options. One of those areas are ribbons, and these are all called ribbons, and just, whatever, right? No, I don't think it's the best name. And then right above it, you have toolbars. And so here's a toolbar. You only are seeing one, but if you want to see more, you could right-click, and you could say, show me more toolbars, and there's a formatting toolbar. And they minimize how much they show you in Microsoft Word, because a little bit too much clutter is overwhelming and it's bad user experience. And people come in, they're like, I'm totally confused what I do. I could choose Times New Roman right here, or I could choose it right there. This is confusing. And so they just don't show you everything. But you're seeing how you could come in and turn that on if you want it. Or you could get rid of, all of your toolbars. Like I could get rid of my standard toolbar and now it's gone. And then how do I get it back, right? Like I tried right clicking up there and it didn't show up. And so maybe under view up here, I have toolbars and now I want to see my standard. And so view is a really helpful place, right, to view different stuff. Whatever you want to view in your document, it makes sense. But again, that's a stumper, right? Like, hey, everything disappeared. I used to right click to get them. Where did it go? Well, the first go to, look to place whenever you want to have something show up that's no longer showing up is under view. All right, so that's toolbars. Here are ribbons. FYI, if you want to get rid of your ribbon, you could kind of minimize it. Gives you a little bit more screen space for whatever you're writing. You could also adjust preferences on your ribbons. You could also adjust preferences on your toolbars. Customize toolbars and menus. So you could come in here and even add new icons to the different toolbars depending upon what you want. So we have ribbons, we have toolbars, we have a drop-down menu, right? We saw the view drop-down menu. We've seen these drop-down menus a couple times. The last thing that we have to look at are panels. And we have three groups of panels right here. And just like in the wooded country of Alabama, there's many ways to skin a cat. So you could get to these panels, right, by clicking these buttons here, and all these panels will start flying up. So I've got 3 panels out. But likewise, I could get to those panels in different ways. So for instance, right, when we were looking at our citations, we saw that our citations were here under Manage References, right here under the Document Element ribbon, Manage References. If I got rid of this, as a matter of fact, and then just press Manage, it comes right back up. So many ways to skin a cat, many ways to bring up the same panels. And we've seen a lot of the options in these panels here already. So, here's all of the media, which came up from the media panel right there. And, whatever you want to insert any of these types of media, well, heck, you use the media panel. And then here, right here, this one is kind of like it has your styles, and then it has your citations, and then it has your references, your favorite dinosaur, the thesaurus, and then it also has a scrapbook. And you can see here I've already put some options in the scrapbook when I was copying stuff. Right down here under Add, you could choose to always add copy. And this is not on by default, but this is what happens when it is on. So if I copy something, like I'm going to copy all this text, Command C, and you notice that just popped up over there, and there's a little preview of it. And I'm going to copy that one, Command C, and then later, let's say I need to paste something, and I come down here, and whoops, I don't want that, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command redo, and I got a little bit of a cold. And now I'm going to paste something. If I press Command V, it just gives me my most recent copy. If I want an older copy, I want that one. I could drag it out. So that's kind of a useful little panel, the scrapbook. And then over here on the left, we have this last panel, which is a document outline. So if I had many pages in my document, I'd be able to see all those pages. And we could just preview that again by bringing up this Harvard Trainer excerpt. And then I want to go to my thing, and you can see, here's the preview of it. And I could just jump right to page 5 by clicking on the preview. Or page 12. I'm at page 12. So that's how the preview works. There's a few other things in here, like the find and the replace, a summary of your document, and then a document map, which is a little bit different than the thumbnails pane. All right, so those are the different areas where you could select options to do stuff. You have your ribbons. You have your toolbars. You've seen how to sort of make those disappear and come back and change options on them. You have your drop-down menus, and you have your panels. So I'm going to show you how to use columns in this video. And columns are a pretty nifty, handy, fancy schmancy tool, which you will find yourself using at some point once you've learned about them, just because they're slick. And to show you how to use columns, I'm going to open up this book that I wrote and that people don't read that's on Amazon, which you could download, because I make $5 to $10 a month from all of the 40 plus books I've written. But let's say that I'm kind of doing a format thing and I want to turn this into columns just to kind of make it look cool. I could highlight what I want to turn into a column, and then I just go to my home ribbon, and right here I've got columns, and I just want to turn this into 2 columns. and I could hit that, and bam, it becomes 2 columns. Right? I'm going to hit undo and show you a few more options with columns. I could come down here and hit columns once more, and then I have a few more options. I could say I want this to be 3 columns, and I want a line between. Right? So you can see right here in the preview what line between does. It adds a line between my columns. And there's a specific name for that in layout, like when people are talking about publish layout, and I don't remember the name of it. If I wanted to, I could even do 2 columns, and then I could change the spacing, and I could say, hey, this first one, spacing, that's the spacing between them. The width, I wish there was a percentage way to do this. So I'm going to go with like 4 inches on that one and see if it adjusts. It does 3. What about if I do 1 on that one and then equal column width? I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to make this one 4 and this one 2 is about 6. And so you can see it's a offset column. I'm going to stick with 3, however, and my line between them. Hit OK. And so there are my 3 columns. And that's it. That's all you need to know about using columns. There is one more thing, however, which I will show you, is if you change your view and you go into draft view, what's that look like? It looks like a section break continuous, because here we have one type of layout in our document, which is without columns, and then we put in a continuous section break, meaning it's not a page break. And we turn this into a column kind of section, a section with column formatting. And then we end that section, we create a new section, and that new section's got the normal formatting. So when you look at this in print layout view, how's it going to look when it's printed? It's going to look like that. And if I was doing this document, I'd probably move that to the next line. Anyhow, that's columns. The next thing, we're looking at the home ribbon here, and so the next thing I'm going to show you is superscript and subscript, which, it's pretty self-explanatory. Superscript means take a little, take something and add something up high, like, x squared or n squared or whatever, and subscript is take something and add something down low, like that one right there. So how do you do that? I'm going to come over here, get rid of that, and save, and then I'm going to put in the letter A, or it could be any letter. So I'll use the letter X just because that's like math. I'm going to make it bigger. I'm going to increase the font size on this just so we can kind of see what's going on. And then I'm going to add to the power of 3, x cubed. I'm going to highlight that. And now if I wanted to keep typing, I'd put a space and actually type something there. Because when I take this and hit super, right, it just made it x to the 3rd. And now I could type some more, and then I could have like y to the 2nd, and if I just make this a sub without first like putting some text out to the side there, right, watch what happens. I'm going to shrink all this down a little bit so I have a little bit more room on one line, and I'm going to make that a subscript, and now I'm going to just right arrow to the right of it, and now I'm typing down there. And so the reason Command Z to undo, the reason you want to kind of add something here before you like super or sub that is so that once it's added, you can come up here and keep typing on the level you want to keep typing. All right, so that's that was a funny little typo. That's superscript and subscript. So we're still looking at the home ribbon, and the next thing I'm going to show you is sorting. And sorting is a really powerful tool which you could use to, it's pretty self-explanatory, quickly sort a big list. And so I have a big list here. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to insert a divider, and I think for my divider it'll just be a few equal signs. And now I'm going to paste what I've just copied, and I'm going to choose to paste that special and just unformatted text, because I just want, I don't actually want any of those numbers. So I guess I have to select it all again and get rid of this, turn that on, get rid of that, turn this on, get rid of that. And then since it's not all the way over to the left, I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard and press Tab. And that's not bringing it over. So how do I get that to line up? How do I get that to kind of come over here and look pretty? And I'm leaving this in the video just so you can kind of see how I work with things. What about if I turn on the non-printing characters? I don't see any tab marks right there, right? Like, why is that not lined up over on the left? What about on my ruler? Can I adjust these things at all? So as soon as I moved that over, that kind of became interesting. And then I moved it back, and now it's looking the way I want it to look. And what the hell happened? I just don't know. I don't know what happened. And that's sometimes the way Microsoft Word works. But you can rewatch this video and kind of see the thought process I went through to fix that, because, all right, I copied it, I pasted it, it came in as these numbers, right? And I wanted to get rid of those numbers, so I tried turning them on and off right here with, like, my bullets and my numbering, and I got rid of the numbers and the outlining, but then it was all kind of in a screwy view. I tried to hold down Shift and Tab, so when you highlight something, if I tab that over, and if I hold down Shift and tab it back, you can see that this is moving as I tab it over and tab it back. Well, that didn't fix it. So I highlighted everything and then I just, moved this up here manually, and for some strange reason that fixed it. All right, so the main point of this video is I'm going to show you sorting. And now that I have a list here, which is definitely not sorted, I'm ready to sort it. So I'm going to highlight this list. And I've got my list highlighted. I'm just going to come up here and hit sort. And then the sort dialog box pops up. Sort by paragraphs. Yeah, this is a paragraph. Each return, and you can see the returns right there, each return is a paragraph. So I'm going to group these by paragraph. And I'm going to hit sort once more. Sort by paragraphs, type text. We have number, we have date also. Sort in ascending order. I have more options here, right? So if I had some other more complicated stuff going on, I could play with that. Does it have a header row? No header row. So a header row would be like if I had one item at the very top that was called my list, and then I selected all of this, and then hit sort, and then I said, hey, it has a header row. The my list at the top won't be included at the sort but will stay at the top as the header to the entire column of data. And now I'm just going to hit OK, and it's just that easy. And you can see here that I already have this in alphabetical order, right? Or that's what the sort did. It put it into alphabetical order. So that's pretty cool. It looks like there's some sort of like order. There's some sort of order to sorting something that is reassuring for some reason, right? It's like, now everything's in order. It makes sense. I don't know what that's about, but that was my reaction when I saw this. Is like, oh good, it's all in order. It makes sense. All right, so that's sorting. This is how you get to it right here. Again, we're just going through the ribbon here, this home ribbon, and the next thing I want to show you is right here, paragraph borders and formatting the borders around paragraphs. And this is a really cool thing because you can make different paragraphs look different, and that's really nice. So I'm going to use our old handy tool equals rand, and I think I'll go with, and I always forget, is it 4 lines 3 paragraphs, or is it going to be 3 lines and 4 paragraphs? So it looks like I got 4 paragraphs 3 lines. I think I'm going to go with 4 paragraphs 7 lines each. And there we go. And to get back to that, just Command Z and then just hit enter again and it comes up. So I could change this paragraph right here and I can make it stand out. And in publishing, they sometimes call these call outs. They call it a call out. And the word I'm saying there is call out. They call it a call out in publishing. And to do that, if I want to call this out, you see it in magazines all the time, is I highlight it and then I can come up here and I can say, hey, put a border around that entire thing. And now I've got a border around that whole thing. That's still not quite the look I'm looking for. So I could hit this down, and it seems like there should be more options here, right? Like we saw that before when we were working with borders. So what happens if I right-click it? And here I have font, I have paragraphs, I have bullets and numbering, and I don't see anything there. So here's my challenge for you. And pause the video as soon as I ask the question. Which of these drop-down menus do you think you're going to find something under to format borders? Which drop-down menu? Well, if you guessed format, you are correct. Format, borders, and shading. And so when I come in here, I really have a lot more options, and I don't quite understand why Microsoft Word doesn't include that right in here as like format borders ... because they do include that in a lot of different places, like right here, columns ... Why don't we have borders ... And so I don't know what's going on with Microsoft, but I would really appreciate it if they would get like a usability expert to come in and create some consistency. Dang it, bring a little order to Microsoft Word. So what I'm looking for here is format, borders, and shading. And here I have more options. And so the options that I could choose would be like, I want a little bit of a heavier width. And so there's my heavier width, and it's all around. And I think I'd like to go with a 3D look. And so now I'm going to apply this, just make sure it's all applied, the 3D look. To it, and it's applying to the paragraph. And here I have some more options. Nothing to do there. And then I have some shading options. So I'm going to go with a light gray shading on it. And you can see the preview of the different colors of gray right there. Or maybe even a light yellow or a bright yellow. Let's go with a bright yellow. That's really going to make it stand out. And I'm going to hit OK. And so now you can see this call out really jumps out. Well, I would also like to change this a little bit more. And you might be tempted when you format your document to hit enter and say, perfect. And that is actually not the purest way. If you're a purist, a Microsoft Word purist, that's not the purest way to do it. It's a very effective way to do it, but it's not the pure way. And so the pure way would be if you have a bunch of paragraphs and you want to change the spacing between those paragraphs, you highlight those paragraphs and you're going to go to Format Paragraph. And you could say, hey, what's the spacing after each paragraph? 6 points or 12 points or whatever. And so now I have a little bit of spacing after each of those. And now what would I, the next thing I'd like to do to change this would be to sort of have it not be the same width as everything else. So I highlight this paragraph. I've selected that whole paragraph. And sometimes you could get your arrow out here to select it and double click. And so you can see I'm selecting different stuff as I double click out there. Selected my whole paragraph. And then I'm just going to grab these guys here and just start moving it in. And this guy here, and start moving it in. And so now I have a little bit of a differently formatted call out. And I've got 1 inch on that side, so I'll put 1 inch on this side just to keep it symmetrical. And if I wanted to sort of change the text inside, I could do that. And is there anything else that I would want to add to this call out box? I'm just kind of thinking about that. And I think that's good. I think that, putting a border around a paragraph, looking at this thing here on the home ribbon and seeing that, we've got a few basic options, but then seeing that we have even more options up under here, and then being able to add a background color and, change the size of it to adjust our call out, and also being able to change the spacing after each of our paragraphs. Those are a lot of really good things to know about Microsoft Word. There is one more thing I want to show you about changing this paragraph, and it's not on this ribbon right here, the home ribbon, but since we're on sort of the subject of making this look good, it just came up to me, and I'm like, I got to show you this. And it's adding a drop cap. So you could highlight the first letter of anything, and you could come into Format, and you could choose Drop Cap. And when I do that, watch what it does. What kind of drop cap do you want? I want that kind. And that's the look it gives it. So if you're interested in adding a drop cap to something, you have Format, Drop Cap, and you get that look, and it's kind of a cool look. You've already seen me play around with lists when I copied this and pasted it down somewhere else, but I just want to show you lists from the very beginning. So I'm going to get rid of this stuff we created in the last video, and I'm going to create a list. And the way I create a list here on the home ribbon is I could choose either to have a numbered list, and you have many different types of lists, or you could choose to define a new number format where you could choose a different font, and if you wanted to, you could come down here to like, Wingdings or something and choose what your numbered list looks like. So I'm going to create my list, and I could do that by just saying I want my list to look like that, and now I have my list, right? Pretty self-explanatory. And I also have the same thing with bullets. So if I want to create a bulleted list, let me just hit return there, highlight that, and make that a bulleted list. There we go. And I have more options for what kind of bullets would I like. So there's check marks, right? Or here's little arrows. And if I wanted to do even more, I could define a new bullet. And if I wanted to, I could come in here and I could start choosing what I want for a bullet. And I know that's really micro small, but maybe I want a little clock. And okay, and now I have little clocks as bullets. And so there's these options on here when you create a list or bullets where you could define a new bullet, or you could come in and you could sort of define new number formatting, right? Or you could kind of have a different bunch of choices by this third option right over here, where it allows you to customize it even more. So that's how you create lists in Microsoft Word, and you have a lot of options to make things kind of look interesting. If you're like, hey, there's too much spacing there, pause the video at this point, and how would you get rid of the spacing? Make it a little bit less. Any ideas? Okay, well, here's the answer. You would move that dude right there, and then I could move this guy back over, and I could bring these all the way over if I want, or move them all the way out here, wherever I wanted it to be. And then when I go to my next line, hopefully if I've done things right, I'll have an outline. So if I hit enter right there, now I'm free from it. So, all right, that's how you create lists in Microsoft Word. So I'm going to show you how to create a different type of call out. And the way we create this call out, and here's an example of one, is by on the home ribbon we have something over here, text box. So I've opened up the Harvard Trainer again and the excerpt from it just so I could create a couple of call outs here. So I'm going to add another call out, and to do that I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And I'll add the next one just above it here, and I'll choose text box, and I could choose either vertical or horizontal. I'm going to go with the horizontal, and I just draw it out, and that's where I want my next text box. And here is more text. And so there we have the two text boxes. And if I want to start to customize this text box, notice I could click right here, and I have the flashing insertion point, which means that it's ready for me to start typing more text. Or if I click right on the edge, there's a four-way arrow. I select the whole box. So with the whole box selected, I come over to Format, and I have some options. And one of the options I could do is I could add some fill. So I'll add like an orange color to it. And I could add a border. I'll add a black border to it. And then I could also start to change things like add some shadow. So that shadow looks good. And then there's more options here that you can play with. And they get a little bit crazy. You want to make sure that the wrapping is set to either square or tight, right? Unless you want to play some of the other design options. But square or tight means that your text is going to wrap around. And so one of the things with text boxes is when you put them in, sometimes you'll get text overlapping the box in a funny way. And for whatever reason, I'm not able to recreate it right now. But if it's not rendering correctly, if it's not looking correct, you could sometimes just go down and then come back up. And then it will have figured it out and refreshed the whole page. And so if you ever have any problems with the way it's displayed, that's one thing you do. You also have the line option right here. So if I select these two boxes, and I did that by first selecting one, and then hold down Shift on the keyboard and select the second. And now I'm going to align these, and I could align left, align center, align right. I'm going to align right. And it just aligned those on the right. And now I could actually move them both at the same time. So I could bring them over where they're kind of just a little bit off the right to where the text ends. So that's how you create some pretty cool callouts using text boxes. And text boxes are some really handy things when you just want to put some text in a certain place on your page. You just go ahead and insert a text box. We have two more things to look at on the home ribbon. A lot of this stuff is really pretty self-explanatory, and you've seen me use this stuff in action. Everything here under font, right? And there's even choices here for some, doing some word art stuff to font, or things here under paragraphs. We've seen all this. Here's indenting and unindenting, which you could have used for, that stuff, which I was doing with tab and shift tab. So you could have also just used those right there. Here's changing the line spacing, which you could have done through the paragraph format paragraph area. You could have come in here and changed the line spacing right here, right, instead of up there. So a lot of ways to skin a cat. Just keep saying that. And so we've seen a lot of stuff up here. We've seen, the styles, different points throughout this training. But we have two last things to cover. Well, we've already seen pictures, so I just want to point that out too. If you're wondering, when are you going to do pictures? We did that when we were kind of creating our paper in the early sections of this training. But now what we're going to look at, the last two things, are shapes and themes. So if I want to insert some shapes into my documents, and that's exactly what they are. It's exactly what they sound like. I've got a bunch of different shapes I could work with. I'm just going to show you a couple of ones that I use the most commonly. One might be like an arrow, right? So I'm going to insert an arrow. I come over there. There's my arrow. And now I could start changing this arrow. I could rotate it. I could change the size, right? I could change the thickness, the width, the length. And you just have different options for changing it. I could come up here under Format, and I could change the color. So I'm going to go with red, and I want the fill, make the fill red. And now it's red, and I want to make the outline red too. And now there's my red arrow if I want to point something out on the page. You'll also notice under Format that you have position, things for wrapping text. And so I might want it in front of text, right? Or through. The text just goes through it. And so you could play with these different options. Most likely I'd put this like in front of text and just lay it over text. Or have text wrapped tight around it if I want to point something out. So I'll illustrate that for you here. Let's just create a little bit of random text, and we've become experts at doing that. Equals rand 14, 14. And where does that end up? It pushed my arrow all the way to the bottom of the text. You can see I've got a couple of pages of text there. But now I could take my arrow and I could start playing with those formatting techniques. Format, and I could do wrap text, and I could do it, square. And I could bring it up here and just put it right there. And now I have square around my arrow. Or I could do tight. And now it's conformed a little bit more to my arrow. Or I could do in front of text. And now it's sitting on top of the text. And so those are really sort of the basics for making it look good, right? Is like getting the shape out there and then just playing with the options for how's it laid out in relation to everything else, doing the wrap text. And you have some more formatting techniques here which you could play with. So I just want to take one more quick look at the different shapes. I use the arrow a lot, and then callouts are also something that I end up using quite a bit. But here's a call out, and you can see right now that that's probably wrapped tight and not square. So I could come over here and I could change that to, let me click on it, and I had my insertion point flashing in there so I could type, what's for lunch? And I think before the beginning of this I need, what's for lunch? And then I maybe want that all on one line, so I drag it over a little bit more. There we go. And I could bring this little part down a little bit more, and so I could have a little character right there. Or something, and then, you know, my wrap text, I was guessing that, okay, so that one says it's through. I was thinking it might be tight, right? But tight actually looks pretty much the same as through. And that's how you'd add, you know, a couple of shape callouts. There's a bunch of different shapes you can play with in here, but they're all pretty much the same. So take a look at them if you need to put in something, right? Some sort of shape, like, you know, here you might put this on certificate. You did great, star. Then you'd use that one. And to format them, you just click it and come over and start playing with your options. And you want to make sure that when it accepts text, if you're formatting, that you don't have the insertion point flashing in your document in the text right there like it is right now, but you click the edge, and you notice when I click the edge some new options came online, right, that I didn't have when I was just in here. Right? I don't have that option right now, but when I click the edge, those options become available. So that's working with shapes. The last thing that we're going to look at on the home ribbon are themes right here. And I've added a few styles just so that you could kind of see how themes really change things up. And here is style heading 1, and here is style heading 2, and 3 and 4, and then, you know, also my normal style when I'm just in a paragraph there. And one thing I want to point out is I probably did not spell hypotenuse correctly, but it's not showing me that I didn't spell it correctly. And the reason it's not showing me that I have a spelling error by underlining that in red is because I told Microsoft Word, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see it. Take it away. I don't want you breaking my train of thought by saying you spelled that incorrectly and making me think about how did I misspell that word. Here's my question for you. How would you turn that back on? If you answered, you'd go up to Word and then choose Preferences. You're absolutely right. So you go into Preferences, you go into Spelling and Grammar, and you'd say, hey, check grammar as you type, check spelling as you type. And then it would be showing me, you know, those red underlines anytime I spelled something incorrectly. But I don't want that. What I want to do is I want to show you themes. And so basically themes are just ways I could sort of change the way my document looks. What kind of theme do I want? Here's a pretty bright one, right? And here's this, and you notice that kind of changed even. Here's a different one. And so just as I change themes, I'm getting different looks on my document. And that's it. That's all there is to themes. You come in here and you just choose the different ones until you find a look that seems to work for you. And it basically is just choosing a different type of formatting, different color schemes, and applying that to your document to see if, you know, it's something that you'd like. So that's using themes. It's good to know about. It's right here on the home ribbon. And now that we've gotten through everything on the home ribbon, in the next couple of videos, we're going to take a look at the rest of the menus, and then we're going to take the rest of the ribbons, and then we'll take a look at some of the menus and some of the options there. And then I'm going to add one more item in here. So click to the end of my list, and I'm at C. How do I go to 11? Well, I could hold down Shift and press Tab. Alternately, I could come up here and I could choose this, which is to decrease indent right there. And I'm going to add resume. I'll do Todd's resume. And now you can download my resume and appropriate it for your own use. I'm going to show you how to customize it. That'll be like the icing on the cake for the end of our class. I hope you learned some great stuff.